Hello and welcome to RealMarcFoxx. I'm Fox and this is episode number 1 of the Foxx Experience. Today we'll be covering Returnal. Originally released on the PlayStation 5, I picked it up years later on super sale on Steam. So I'll be playing the PC version exclusively. That is some very nice organic coffee, freshly roasted, freshly brewed in a percolator, and all set up in this wonderful, beautiful RealMarcFoxx mug. Are these available for purchase? Not right now, because quite frankly, I don't think I'd sell any. Honestly, who wants to buy one of these? Would you buy one of these if I sold them? Because if you would, I would definitely start selling them.
Oh yeah!
For sure. I'd sell lots of stuff if I could. So why talk about Returnal, a game that is now years old, and certainly most people who are interested in it have already played it? Well, I like to pick up games when they're on super sale on Steam, and that often requires waiting at least a year, if not more. The whole purpose of the Foxx Experience is for me to talk about my personal experience with a game, which may not match yours, and which may not actually really even match the game all that much, because it's whatever I experience while I play it. Returnal is a unique game, and one I picked up based just solely on how it looked. I didn't actually even watch any reviews. I had little to no clue what type of game it was, and later found out that it is essentially an over-the-shoulder shooter roguelike. And what's a roguelike? Well, this is a game where as you progress through it, if you die, you basically have to start over. Except unlike the original Rogue or the hardcore roguelikes, in this one you do carry over some things from playthrough to playthrough. You see, when you go back to the start, any items you unlocked stay unlocked, and some of the resources you gathered stay with you, so you can continue to purchase things to make subsequent runs easier.
Oh yeah!
In addition to getting better at the game, you actually get more stuff to start out each playthrough with, so as you progress through, it makes it that much easier. But make no mistake, I found out this game is far from easy.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
In fact, if you go to the popular mods website, Libtard Mods, my mistake, I'm sorry, I meant Nexus Mods, then you'll find that the most popular mods for this game are actually mods to make it easier, of which I did install some after playing for quite a while. I got to the first boss repeatedly, over and over again, only to die again and again. And sometimes I'd make it most of the way to the boss but lose a bunch of health, and I didn't feel like I had a good weapon, and I didn't have enough health to go in, and there was no more health to collect, and I felt like, well, shoot, should I even bother trying to beat the boss this time around?
No.
The good news is that they give you some stuff to help you. As you progress through the game, you can pick up the astronaut figurine. And let me tell you something, the astronaut figurine is by far one of, if not the most useful items in the game, because it allows you to come right back to life, full health, if you die. It's essentially a second chance.
Oh yeah, baby!
And basically it means that if you die, you get to Returnal to right where you left off. You just get right back up off the ground.
Yes! That's awesome!
That's perfect. I love it. That's exactly what I want to see in a game like this. Let us collect items that really do help us. But unfortunately, most items in this game kind of suck.
Fucking thing sucks!
It takes a long time to collect enough obolites, which are like currency, and it takes a while to get enough ether, which is another currency basically. And not only that, but when you do find a lot of items that have bonuses on them, they also have debuffs, negatives. They're called parasites.
That's not going to be good for business. That's not going to be good for anybody.
So you gotta weigh the pros and cons. Whoa, do I want increased weapon proficiency at the cost of, my dash taking longer to recover? The answer to that is no.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Because the dash, my friends, is one of the most important things in this game. Never, and I repeat, never get yourself any parasite that debuffs your dash. Because this game is all about staying on the move, constantly shooting when you're able, reloading at just the right time so that you don't have to wait as long as I did, because apparently I went through the entire game not realizing that there's a timed reload to avoid the delay in reloading. Never even knew that.
Idiot!
Had no idea until I watched content about the game after finishing it. It's embarrassing.
How embarrassing. How embarrassing.
And I call myself a real gamer. How could I be a real gamer and not know that? And what was I talking about? No, this isn't in the script. I genuinely forgot what I was talking about. Lost my train of thought. Anyway, items in this game aren't as good as they seem, and the obolites that drop from enemies you defeat disappear extremely quickly. You basically have to collect them as soon as they drop, or they will disappear. You can't kill an enemy, then focusing on killing a second enemy, and then go back to collect the obolite currency from the first one,
because it's long gone.
This stuff stays around for what? Some matter of seconds? Maybe 20 seconds? So what did I do? That's right. I got on libtard mods and I downloaded a mod to keep the obolites around forever, indefinitely, until I at my own leisure can go pick them up. I mean, after all, I got those obolites fair and square. They're dropped on the ground. What would make them disappear? There's nothing in the game to have a game-based reason, a story-based reason for them to disappear. But there is, I tell you, there is a story-based reason for why you come back to life each time you die, and that is exactly why it's called Returnal. Although with the challenge I first met with this game, dying over and over again, getting all the way to the first area boss only to die again to have to start from the beginning of the first area, I got so frustrated. I looked at this game and I said, you know what? I'm gonna turn Returnal into Refundal on Steam. But fortunately I didn't. I stuck it out with the help of some mods, so yes, kind of cheating. I never went online, don't worry. I didn't cheat online. And I'm glad I did stick it out, because Returnal's got a lot going for it. Although it's not typically the type of game I would play, especially being a rogue-like, it does have some really solid mechanics. But first, we have to talk about one of the biggest drawbacks to this game, and one thing I think really hurt its sales. And that is the absolutely unattractive and, in some ways, outright ugly main protagonist. Yes, Celine, the main character of the game, was originally a lot more attractive, although honestly, she kind of originally looked like a Hollywood actress who had too much facial plastic surgery. I mean, what is that, lip filler there? You know, I'm not going to say I absolutely love the original design, but the new design is a massive downgrade, and I can only imagine that this had something to do with the whole woke DEI agenda that was being pushed in games at the time. Still, to this day, as of the recording of this video, there does appear to be a pushback against DEI within the industry, although I'm skeptical. I always remain skeptical. I think the DEI wokies are always out there looking for ways to destroy video games and to try to ruin gamers' day. I think the DEI wokies are always working behind the scenes to try to destroy everything that they can, whether it's video games, board games, movies, cartoons, anime, you name it. Anything that could be considered nerd culture, they're there trying to ruin it. I mean, anything that could be a subculture, anything that people could get involved in as a hobby, they're there trying to ruin it. You know what I've never heard anyone say ever?
We need more ugly chicks in games. I want to play a game as an ugly chick.
You know who wants to play a game as an ugly chick?
Nobody.
Not even ugly chicks. And if you're an ugly chick, first of all, sorry to hear that. That really sucks, even more for a woman than for a man. A man can get by being ugly, and it's not the end of the world. But for a woman, it's not great. So you know what? Do what you can to stop being ugly. Do what you can to make yourself look as good as you can. Hit the gym, work out, eat right, and, well, if you have to, I guess you could get plastic surgery, but be really careful about that. That's dangerous. I mean, we all saw what happened to the actress who plays Starlight in The Boys after she decided to get some facial reconstruction surgery. Woo! It's like the female version of Skeletor, and not in a cool way. Yes, that's right, folks. Whether you're a man or a woman, everybody enjoys playing as an attractive female, because for women, being attractive is power. That has been true for all of human history. It is true today just as much as it was yesterday and 1,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago. For a woman, to be attractive is a component of being powerful. And even more so if a woman is attractive and has power, whether it's physical power guns, magic power, whatever the case is. Look, guys, these are video games, okay? They're not meant to be totally realistic, and in so, the last thing we need is to include realistically unattractive female characters. I don't want unattractive male characters either, but the last thing anyone wants to do is to play as the Space Karen. This might as well be Space Grandma, though honestly she's not that old. But honestly, who wants to play as an unattractive, resting bitch face, middle-aged Space Karen? I can tell you who.
Nobody.
And don't believe the wokies, the DEI-sters out there who claim that they like the design or think it's attractive. They don't.
They're lying.
One thing about wokies is they're liars. Can you guys give me just a minute, because the cat is biting on my softbox for my light. Get out of here. You little shit. Get out of here. No. Oh, now. Gonna get fur in my coffee. Okay. He's gone. Yes, unfortunately, the two previous cats my wife brought into this household are deceased now. They weren't bad cats by any means. I did like them, but I wasn't necessarily planning on getting more, but yet here we are. We have two male cats. We got them as little kittens. And you know what little kittens are? They're little shits that run around and bite everything and attack everything and swipe at your ankles and cut you all over the place. I've got cuts up and down my arms, my legs. Sometimes they try to jump on my shoulders, like on my back, and they're cutting into me, slicing through my shirt. It's kind of a nightmare. It's like a really, really cute nightmare, if that makes any sense. I don't think it does. So, in keeping with the theme of Returnal, I decided to put my face in a space helmet on the thumbnail, and I tried my best to do resting bitch face, but I couldn't do it. I'm not very good at it. I just look kind of perturbed or a little angry. Angry and perturbed isn't exactly the same as resting bitch face, because I don't even think they intended for Celine on the cover of this game to look angry. I think they just intended for her to look like determined or strong, but instead it's
Space Karen, RBFS3.
I mean, I take one look at this face and all I can imagine is that she's flying into this planet by herself, mind you. Stupid. Any man would know, bring someone with you, unless you're Han Solo just riding out there. But even he had Chewbacca, right? I'm not a Star Wars guy. Didn't he always fly around with Chewbacca? Is it called flying in space? Spacing. Wasn't he always spacing with Chewbacca? Any man would know. Don't go to some foreign planet with any signs of life, totally by yourself, with no help anywhere nearby. This Astra Corporation she works for, what the hell are they doing?
Oh yeah, just go out here and explore these alien planets and let us know if anything happens.
Don't worry, help is only a couple million light years away. So here she is, going onto this planet for, I have no idea why, because, you know, I don't totally pay attention to the story. There might have been a reason. And she gets shot down, something happens to the ship, it crash lands, okay? And at this point, I'm thinking, if I'm working for Astra, I'm like, okay, I'm stuck on this planet, I'm sending out the help signals, which I believe she's trying to do. She's trying to communicate with Astra, which actually explains the self-talk in this game. You see, many games have what I call self-talk, which is incredibly annoying, because even when the protagonist is by himself or by herself, she's talking to herself as if it's the game developers trying to talk to you, saying stupid shit like,
Oh hey, I just picked up some gold coins. I bet you I could use this to buy stuff at the store.
or
I just picked up a sword. I bet you I could use this to fight bad guys.
it's always something dumb that you don't need to know. It's like Aloy in the Horizon series running around going,
Ah, look, that building looks old. It's dilapidated and falling apart. This building must be from some ancient civilization.
really? I would have never guessed. This dilapidated, old, ancient-looking building with moss and vegetation growing through it. It's obvious it's been there for thousands of years. I would have had no idea had Aloy not said, this must be from some ancient civilization. Thank you, Aloy. We needed to know that. However, in this case, despite Celine telling us obvious stuff a lot of the times, she does actually give you some useful information, and there's a reason. She's talking to herself. She's recording logs as somewhat of a scientist. She's a space astronaut scientist. And as a scientist visiting a brand new alien planet, it would make sense to record information about it. So, easiest way to do it while you're moving around is to record your voice into a log. So yes, in this case, the self-talk makes sense. It is sometimes annoying, but it's not bad. It makes sense.
It's okay.
And you know what self-talk is much better than? Yeah, self-talk is better than the stupid little companion that usually floats around, flies around, pops up out of nowhere, that talks to you constantly, telling you obvious stupid shit. Great example is some of the Zeldas where you had the little fairy flying around, can't remember her name.
Hey, listen, look, listen, Link, there's a sword. You should get the sword. You should use the sword to fight the bad guys.
It's always stupid shit that you already know. It's like they make these games for little kids who don't know anything about video games, who probably don't even have the language capacity to read anything in the game, and yet they think it's going to make this game accessible to them. The only other option is the game is for complete and utter retards. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. We've switched to hot green tea, matcha, Japanese style. Getting back to Celine and her level of attractiveness or unattractiveness, I do have to give them credit. Despite the thoroughly unappealing face of the 45-year-old space mom, and despite the horribly nasty RBF she has on the cover, she doesn't have that bad of a body. I mean, take a look. She's clearly in shape. You would expect that for any astronaut going out into space. You wouldn't expect them to be overweight or even chunky for that matter. But not only does she have a quite shapely body, but let's just take a look at this booty. I mean, wow. Any woman of her age would be thrilled to have a bottom that looks like that. Not bad at all. So your basic progression in this game involves a lot of running around, jumping, the very important dash, allowing you to dash through many of the projectiles, of which there are a
Shit ton.
When you encounter enemies, they can sometimes hit you physically, move up on you, slash at you with these like electric laser swords, but generally speaking, you'll spend most of your time dodging a ton of projectiles. This essentially becomes an over-the-shoulder shooter
Bullet hell game.
I mean, just take a look at this. There are projectiles everywhere, and they're very colorful. I gotta tell you, the effects in this game,
wow.
They really put in a lot of effort, and I'm not sure all the effects really entirely match the aesthetic, because there are some very bright blues, bright, vibrant reds, lots of colors, purples. I mean, shit everywhere. There's stuff everywhere to the point where I'm not even sure it's entirely possible to avoid it all. Sometimes you just gotta take damage, and you gotta know what does more damage and what does less damage, because if you're gonna take a hit to avoid some other hits, take the lesser hit. That's a life lesson right there. That is a lesson for all of life. If you have to take a hit, take the lesser hit when it's available. As I mentioned before, it's critical knowing when and how to dodge. Dodging through projectiles and through attacks, oh yeah, that is like Dark Souls level of satisfying, because it's kind of like rolling through an attack in Dark Souls. Ever since playing Dark Souls, then going back and playing Demon Souls, and every Souls and Souls-like game since, pretty much, I have learned to absolutely love the notion of being able to dodge through an attack. Whether it's a Souls-like, whether it's an over-the-shoulder shooter game like this, whether it's a Metroidvania game, which really we should just be calling the Metroid-like, because there's no Vania. A Metroidvania is a Castlevania game that's like Metroid. So calling a non-Castlevania game a Metroidvania doesn't make any sense, because there's no Vania of Castlevania. That's neither here nor there. Whether it's a Metroidvania or a Metroid-like game, I want to be able to dodge through attacks, preferably even to dodge through enemies when applicable. It wouldn't make as much sense in a third-person game like Returnal, but if you're playing a game like a Metroid-like, then yeah, it makes sense that you'd be able to dash or roll right through an enemy and then attack them from behind. And you know me, I love attacking them from behind. Ooh, that's still hot. Thought it would have cooled down by now. So combat involves basically laying on the button and continuing to shoot the enemy. You can just hold the button down, or you can mash the button to sometimes get a faster rate of fire depending on what weapon you have, and oh boy, there are a ton of weapons, some of which you will strongly prefer to others. There are weapons in this game that I find thoroughly unsatisfying. They're extremely difficult to hit enemies with. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the game, maybe it's some combination therein. I just find them very difficult to use. I'd rather have the starting pistol than many of these later weapons that pop up in the game, and honestly, they look really cool. It's like you're shooting missiles or giant blasts of red lasers, but I have the hardest time hitting anything with it. I'm mainly stuck with the pistol, what is essentially the assault rifle or the machine gun, and then I like this other thing known as the pylon driver, I believe it's called, and it shoots out these little red lasers. And at first I didn't like it, but I gave it a shot and realized, you know what? You can shoot these little red lasers out, they hang there for a while, and as they hang there, they continue to damage the enemy. It ended up being, in my opinion, one of the most powerful weapons in the game. But in terms of fun factor, I like just using your standard assault rifle. And to get political for a moment, assault rifle really doesn't have a clear definition. It's generally like a scare tactic used by Democrats and liberals to try to make you think that it's a really scary weapon. And you know what? Any gun can be scary if it's being pointed at you in a threatening manner. Obviously, it shouldn't be pointed at you at all if they're not intending to shoot you, but assault rifle, the hell does that mean? I mean, if someone's trying to assault you with a rifle, okay, but you could have an assault knife. What about an assault handgun? What about an assault ladle if they're trying to slap you with a ladle? What about an assault fist if someone's trying to give you one of those knuckle sandwiches? That would be an assault fist. We should ban assault fists. No innuendo there. No innuendo there. So as you progress through the game, you begin to realize that there are all these areas you can't get to. There's stuff you can't interact with. You shoot at it, you try to jump into it, you wait to see if it does anything, you try to scan it. And yes, you have to scan stuff in this game, Metroid Prime style, which is cool, but I like to set it to where I don't have to hold the scan button. I click it and boom, it scans on its own. Why have to hold a button if you don't have to? You know what I mean? Auto collect loot, love that. I hate having to manually collect loot in games when basically you would always want to collect it. If there's essentially no weight maximum to collecting loot, then collect it all. I understand not collecting weapons automatically because you replace the one you have, but in terms of like the obolites and the ether and all that stuff, most of it I do believe you auto-collect, unless you encounter one of those big ether piles where you have to smack it with your melee weapon, and that's right, you essentially have a lightsaber in this game. It's not called a lightsaber, but come on now, it's like a blade with a laser into, it's a lightsaber. I don't know, what is it? What is that made out of? Can it pierce through anything? So as you progress and find these areas you can't get through, you start to realize something. You know what? Later on in the game, I'm gonna get something else. I'm gonna get some other item that will allow me to go where I couldn't go before. Because you'll see areas that are just full of water, but there's items down there. So what did I think? Hey, I'm gonna swim down and grab them. So I jump in the water, and what does Celine do?
Death.
Can't go in the water, at least not until you unlock that ability. And there's this stuff that almost looks like lava or corruption from Legend of Zelda. It's like red, and it's really obvious that you shouldn't touch it or it's gonna hurt you. Well, you can get something for that too. And there are all these little points that look like points where you should be able to reach up there with something. I don't know, maybe like a grappling hook. Yes, you get a grappling hook in this game. And oh my gosh, they were not stingy on the range on this thing. You can shoot that grappling hook from what feels like a quarter mile away and just whoop, swoop all the way in there. The grappling hook is really fun to use. You can traverse a super wide area really simply, and as you get further in the game, you'll begin to use the grappling hook to escape from enemies and their projectiles, something I would constantly forget I could do. I took a lot of damage unnecessarily because I wasn't using the grappling hook to the full effect. So the more you progress in this game, the more you can do, the more places you can go. It actually makes it worthwhile to maybe go back and play it again to continue onward. Apparently, there's a super secret final ending that you can only get by beating the game twice, I believe. And well, I beat the game once, that's good enough for me. I didn't like it enough to want to go through it again anytime soon. But after well, hang on, let's back up here just a minute. After I defeated what I thought was the final boss, there was a whole other area to progress through. And then I defeat, again, what I think is the final boss, and you think you're going to escape the planet, but you don't. Minor spoilers here. And then I progress through a third entire area to beat what I'm absolutely certain must be the final boss. And then after that, there is the Tower of Sisyphus. Now, if I had thought about this a little more, maybe I would have realized what I was getting into, because you know who Sisyphus is. He's the guy that was endlessly ever pushing the rock up the hill, but never managing to get to the top. So I go to the Tower of Sisyphus, and I'm fighting my way through. I've got all the mods installed to make it easier. I'm even giving myself extra health to try to avoid dying, and I'm progressing, and I'm progressing, and I'm progressing, and I'm progressing, and I'm like, damn, does this tower ever end? I'm fighting like versions of what I think is going to be the final boss of this area, but no, it's just like a phase of the boss of the area. So I'm like, certainly I can get to the final boss of the Tower of Sisyphus, and that will take me to the end of the game. I thought I got the end of the game multiple times already, so it's like Returnal throws you this curveball and be like, oh, you think you're done? You think you've escaped the planet of Atropos?
No.
No, you haven't. You're returning. It's Returnal. You keep returning. So I'm going
up and up and up and up and up and up.
And I'm like, golly, does this thing ever end? And then I die. 40 some minutes of progress. That's not a ton of time, but I don't have all that much time to play video games anymore. That's the main reason I made the game easier. I can't afford to just keep dying over and over again, otherwise I'd never get this video out to you guys. So here I am, frustrated at my death, going, how long is this tower? So I get on the internet and Google it, and guess what? It's endless. It never ends. It's basically DLC for a roguelike. That makes complete sense for a roguelike. For a roguelike to have a never-ending progression of algorithmically generated levels, yeah, that's what these games do. This was essentially what I believe to be DLC that is never-ending, allowing you to progress onward forever to try to get the highest score you can to see just how far you can go. So I'd realized that, yes, I had actually beaten the game, and although I didn't personally get the ultimate super secret ending, I did get the main ending that most people will experience. So you'll probably notice by now, if you're paying attention to words on the screen, and if you look at Celine's name, the Tower of Sisyphus, the name of her ship being Helios, the name of her son being Helios, I think her ship's name's Helios, her father being called Hyperion, just about every important name in this game, including the planet Atropos, is from Greek mythology. And some of it actually makes sense. If you look up the mythology and you look at the names and where they're applied, it actually does make sense. There's some element of truth to it. You know, the Tower of Sisyphus, never-ending struggle. You're never going to get to the end. That's exactly what the Tower of Sisyphus is. Sisyphus could never push the rock all the way up the hill. In like manner, you can never get to the top of the tower because it is endless. Just like Celine's constant return to life on Atropos.
The tower was, the tower is. Release, escape, release, escape. Should I fall, I will climb again, from the deepest of the deep to the highest of the high. I will go there now, as you will.
But in all honesty, it's not so much that Celine is returning to life after dying, although in a way she does. It's almost as if she's just stuck there. So in a way, instead of calling this Returnal, I think a more applicable name might have been Stuckle. What do you guys think? Stuckle? Okay, that does sound stupid, but I mean, it's more accurate. It just doesn't sound as good as Returnal.
It is impossible to escape. I have tried everything. I'm always brought back by... There is a moment between death and rebirth when tentacles drag me down, screaming, drowning, returning.
And honestly, I've heard some people tell me that they think the name Returnal sounds dumb too. Do you like story and mystery and discovering bits and pieces of what's going on? Then you're gonna love Returnal. Do you not like story and want to skip all that crap? Well, then you're gonna like Returnal as long as you like the gameplay, because you can skip most of the story stuff. You don't really have to focus on it that much. Yes, there are a few points in the game where it slows you down to a crawl as you go through like this sort of almost holographic, unknown nature copy of your home, which exists on an alien planet that you've named Atropos, or somebody named it that. Who named it that? I don't know. You collect these ciphers, which allow you to translate more and more of the glyphs that you discover. Correct me if I'm using these terms wrong. And they are essentially xenoglyphs. And that's awesome, because you put xeno in front of anything and it sounds cool. Xenogears, xenobiologist, xenoglyph, xenophobia. Anyway, the word Xeno is cool. You can put Xenoblade Chronic. Oh man, make a Blade Xeno. I mean, let's do this. Let's rename this channel RealMarcFoxx. What do you guys think? Or XenoReal, XenoMarcFoxx. Too many Xenos? Let's just call the channel XenoFoxx. I bet you people would like that. I'm not gonna rebrand at this point, at least not anytime soon, because I've already rebranded once. You know, this used to be called Foxio Games, but then people would confuse me for one of the furries. And the last thing in the world I want is for anyone to think I'm a furry, because I'm not, okay? I'm not. This isn't a joke. I'm not being facetious. I'm not a furry, never have been, never want to be. I even actively oppose the notion of furries because I think it's degenerate and weird. What? I'm serious, I'm not a furry. So having discussed some elements of the gameplay, having briefly touched on the story, I want to get more to the deeper elements here in Returnal. You see, this isn't just a roguelike for gameplay. There's plenty of gameplay here, and like I said, you could focus almost exclusively on gameplay and be happy with your experience. But if you're interested in a deeper, involved, mysterious, and even very confusing story, one that you have to try to piece together, one that you have to go to multiple different YouTube videos to try to get the answers for, only to discover that nobody knows what the truth is and everyone's got their own theory. There are at least about a dozen or so solid theories on what's going on here, and I'm gonna spoil just a bit, but not the whole thing, just a bit. It's an old game. You probably already played it. You might be here because you've already played it and like it and want to hear about my experience. So let me tell you. The theories range from Atropos, the alien planet, is real.
I would not investigate a signal unless specifically authorized to do so by Astra Command.
Atropos, the alien planet, is not real and it's all in her imagination.
Why has my transfer been delayed? I have ways to deal with that. Delusions? No, they're helping me stay balanced. I've made a lot of progress. What is everyone expecting to find? If they shine a light at me, they'll see the shadow they expect every time.
That Celine exists, that Celine doesn't even exist, that in fact Celine is the hallucination created by her own mother because her mother wasn't able to join Astra and become an astronaut, so she just basically hallucinates this situation where her daughter becomes an astronaut in her place. Some people believe that Celine doesn't exist because she's dead. She died in a horrible car accident, and because of the nature of that accident, she is living through this horror in a sort of purgatory state. Some people think that Celine is alive, but in a coma, because there's a hospital section. And in that coma, she's hallucinating this whole thing. Or some people believe that Celine does exist, but she never became an astronaut. She doesn't work for Astra. This is all in her mind. She's crazy. She's hallucinating all of this. She's a schizophrenic. There are so many different theories for all of this that it really, I don't know. I don't know if you could ever really figure out what's going on here. The only way I think we're ever going to know the full truth is if the developers come out and tell us. And if they're smart, they will never do that. Because theorizing on the truth of a story in a game like this is just part of the fun. It's fun to watch someone else's theories and see how they piece it together with all the little bits and pieces of evidence and suggestions here. And, oh, what is it? This glyph said something. And actually, Celine made this glyph. But did Celine make this glyph in a previous life? Is it that each time Celine dies, a new version of her is created, and therefore she continues on the planet with the other versions, and whatever the other versions created and did still exists, but she's a new version of herself, and then the planet changes a little bit each time, which brings in the roguelite aspect of, you know, algorithmically generated levels. They change with each subsequent playthrough, or actually they change each time you die and return. Essentially, she is stuck here. And whether she's stuck here because it's in her mind, whether she's stuck here because it's real, whether she's stuck here because it's purgatory, or whether she's stuck here because she doesn't exist because it's her mother hallucinating that she exists and her mom is stuck in this hallucination as her daughter by proxy. Is this like a Munchausen by proxy? It's not. It's not. Because in theory, in that case, Celine wouldn't exist. And then what's this about Celine's father? If Celine does exist, and she has a mother and father, as obviously she would, at least they were alive at one point, her father is referred to as Hyperion, and as far as I know, there's like maybe 1 or 2 mentions of him in the thing, and then later on, you fight a boss by the same name who appears to be doing the very thing that it said that her father did. And so, are you fighting her dad on this alien planet? I would have to say that most of the indications suggest to me that either this alien planet isn't real, or there's some force at play, which there may very well be. If you play the game, you know what I'm talking about. There's some force at play that can essentially read Celine's mind and create a kind of reality on this planet to represent what Celine has experienced in her life. And if that's the case, is it real? Is it in her mind? Does the planet actually change, or does her perception of the planet change? I don't know.
I don't know.
I like that. I don't know. That's nice.
Honestly, guys, I have no idea. I don't think we'll ever know. It's going to be a mystery till the end of time. Will there be a Returnal 2? I highly doubt it. I mean, it sold well enough, but I don't think it's the kind of game where they're clamoring to get a sequel out there. One thing it's impossible not to notice about Returnal are the incredible visual and sound effects that the developer has in this game. I mean, as you're traversing through this area, the sights and sounds are an absolute auditory and visual treat.
The tower changes, just like the rest of Atropos.
I was just amazed at when she gets in one of the little teleporter things, it's like and shoots off, or some of the attacks, the way they sound, some of the effects that you hear in the background, the sound effects, the sound of doors opening, chests, interacting with items, scanning, the look of some of the weapons in the game, the way things are destroyed, the way things blow up, essentially turn into bits and pieces of obolites and ether. Every single thing, pretty much, about the sound effects and visual effects in this game are absolutely top-notch. And this is one of the few cases where I'd have to say that I think if I were to give games individual scores for their different elements, for the visual and sound effects in this game, I'd probably give this a straight-up 10 out of 10. I have not experienced many games that I can say are even on the same level, much less better than this. If you are a game developer and you want to see what amazing visual and sound effects can look and sound like, this right here is a prime example. And it is even more amazing if you play in a quiet room while wearing a good pair of headphones. I don't often wear headphones while gaming because they end up making me feel really hot, and the pressure on my ears, around my ears, whatever, starts to get to me, gives me a headache. But for this game, I made an exception, and at times I put those headphones on and played away, and it was incredible. Really enjoyed it. One of the bummers of the game, though, is the jumping. Now, it is pretty good, but unfortunately it's not perfect. At times, jumping felt kind of slippery, and there were cases where, in order to progress forward, you had to do some fairly accurate jumps. Most of the time, if you're looking at difficult jumps, it's just to get items like health items or other things you don't absolutely need. So if you're frustrated trying to jump on these small platforms to get to something, well, you probably don't need it, so you could skip it. But it would have been nice if the jumping had been a little tighter. It almost gave you that feeling like you're jumping on the moon, and it makes a little bit of sense. Maybe Atropos doesn't have the same level of gravity as Earth. However, realism should never trump fun. And if it's not fun to have slippery jump controls, but it is realistic, well then just be unrealistic and make the jumping more fun. Suggestion from me. Another pet peeve I had, and maybe it had something to do with me, I don't know, but it seemed like I was constantly running into this situation where I'd be shooting at the bad guy, getting almost all the hits in accurately too, and I'm getting him down to almost 0 health, and right as he's right next to dead, I run out of ammunition. And then, because I didn't realize that if you reloaded at just the right time, it was practically instant, I would be stuck waiting for it to reload, and that takes a few seconds. And a few seconds is a long time when you've got an enemy right that close to death and you're being shot at from multiple angles and shit is coming everywhere. 1,000 projectiles flying up in the air, coming down, coming from the side, rings expanding with red lights of damage, and there's stuff all over the place, and all you want to do is just take this guy out. But now you're stuck waiting a few seconds for the reload. That just got on my nerves. And again, I could have solved a lot of that trouble had I just known to do the timed reload.
Skill issue. Get good.
And this is just an idea that popped into my head, and I'm sure they would have gotten a lot of flack for it, but if Returnal wanted to be like the Ultima meta experience, well then you take the concept of the parasites in the game, something that gives you a buff and a debuff at the same time, so you gotta kind of weigh the pros and cons of it, some of which are okay, some of which never do, like I mentioned. Anything that debuffs your dash, not worth it. Don't debuff your dash. That's one of the worst things you can do. But if they wanted to be super meta, what if installing Returnal on your PC basically also included a crypto miner that hurt the performance of the game and took up CPU cycles? And in order to disable the crypto miner, instead of just uninstalling the game, because then you can't play it, you have to get an in-game item that gets rid of the parasite that installed with the game. That would be so meta, wouldn't it? What? Oh, that's a bad idea? Oh, they could get in legal trouble for that. Okay, cancel that, never mind. Bad suggestion. Some of the environmental elements in the game just kind of remind me of silly video game things that don't make any sense. For example, a lot of games will have these security lasers or things to detect people moving around to try to make sure no one gets in a secret area. Well, as you progress through Returnal, you're going to encounter a lot of these areas that have these moving lasers that I can only assume the intent was to keep people out or aliens or whatever they were. But why would you have the lasers move in such a pattern where if the person just notes the pattern, they can zip their way through it and get through unharmed? That wouldn't make any sense. If you don't want someone coming through, just have the laser cover the entire area, right? Just have enough little laser beams so there's no way through without taking damage or dying, and that solves your problem. But instead, no. Somebody at Atropos Security was like, okay, we're going to set up these security lasers. They're going to do extensive damage depending on what type of laser it is, but we're going to have them move in such a pattern where if they're really astute and they move fast, they can get through it unharmed. they need a new chief of security. And you know, one of the lessons you learn as you play Returnal is the same lesson you learn if you watch a lot of Hollywood movies, especially the Alien series. I think we've all learned by now from movies, novels, video games, that the ultimate lesson here, I think, is don't mess with alien planets. Just don't do it. They're not bothering us. Why do we go bother them? And then, all sorts of problems pop up. Oh, we gotta go check out this. Sorry, my cat's just jumping all over the place, falling off desks. Oh, we're gonna go to this alien planet, and we're gonna mess with this stuff here. Oh, look, we found some egg things. Let's see what they do. Oh, they're on our faces, and now they're back on our ships, and oh, they've made their way to our home planet. You know, you can avoid all that hassle if you just leave them alone. I mean, we're not really finding anything good on alien planets, are we? All we find is bad stuff. We find bad aliens that want to kill us, militaristic weapons that are more powerful than anything we could come up with. Almost every single time we decide, hey, let's go explore an alien planet, it just doesn't turn out well. Let's stop doing that. So one thing about games that I don't often hear discussed, it's implied, but not directly discussed, is what I like to call the gestalt factor. And that's the word that looks like gestalt, but I think it's more properly pronounced gestalt with a sort of SH sound in there. I am half German. And the gestalt factor is the idea that the sum of all the parts is really more than just all the parts added together. It's like when you put everything together, it becomes more than the sum of its parts. That's a concept we all understand. Sometimes when you take some things and you put them all together, it becomes so much more than just those individual things by themselves added up. It's as if all of these elements, when put together properly, can make something brand new, something way beyond what you would think they could. And I think in a way, Returnal really does have that gestalt factor. It is more than the sum of its parts. And to just describe the game piece by piece, element by element, doesn't give you the full effect of experiencing this game for yourself. Given the number of years that have passed since this game came out, I think it'd be easy at this point to pick it up on sale. You could get it used on the PlayStation 5 if you have the optical drive, or you could just wait until it goes on super sale and pick it up digitally, whether on PlayStation 5 or on the PC. And I don't think you will be disappointed by this game. If you think you might like this game at all, then definitely worth a shot, especially on Steam, where if you play less than 2 hours of it, you can return it. You can Returnal. Yeah, see? Oh, I'm really hammering that joke home, aren't I? And on the topic of the unattractive female protagonist, Celine being the ultimate middle-aged space Karen, you can actually download mods for the PC and turn her into a different character. Now, most of the modded characters I found were just totally out of place for the game. They didn't fit at all, but a few that did were the Samus mods that basically put Samus in the game in one of her suits, some of which actually fit quite nicely. The only drawback, of course, is that during some of the cutscenes, you will still see that Samus mod, and it won't quite look right. Like, the cutscene won't actually be doing what it's supposed to because you've changed the character model. So the way that Celine is moving doesn't match the way that the modded Samus character is moving. But other than that, it actually kind of makes it a little more fun because you're playing as a character that doesn't look ugly. And now the other cat is chewing on the soft box. Come here. Come here, you little shit. Get over here. Apologize. I want you to apologize to the audience right now. Say you're sorry. Or just sniff my finger. All right, get out. Daddy's working. And before I forget, a huge shout out and thank you to our channel members shown on the screen now. And if you want to become a channel member, it's as cheap as $1.99 a month. Click the link down below. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment because I do read them all. Get out. Get. So the final thing I wanted to talk about with Returnal is my experience with the ultimate lesson that they're trying to teach us here, if there is one. So I thought about it for a while, and at first I was looking at the concepts of death and rebirth or reincarnation, but in actuality, she's not really dying and being reborn. She just comes back as herself. That's not reincarnation, not in the traditional sense. And it's not rebirth, because she's not coming back as a baby. She just comes back as herself with memories of what she experienced before her death. So if you're just coming back after dying, it's not that. Instead, I think it's something different, but something that is more applicable to our lives. Something that I think we can all associate with. And this is the concept of being stuck. It's the idea of being trapped in a very difficult, a troubling, depressing, a tragic situation, a scenario where no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, no matter how well you manage to accomplish, no matter how well you manage to get along, trying to get towards that goal of escaping the situation, you in one way or another constantly find yourself back at square one. And if you can imagine, say, you're trying to get out of debt. You have a lot of debt, you're paying it off, you're trying to get to the point where you can hold your head above water finally, and you're working hard, putting in overtime, and what happens? Something goes wrong with the car. Here comes that $2,000 car bill you weren't expecting, undoing all this progress. Or maybe you're stuck in a relationship. You're not physically trapped, you could walk away, but financially, kids, romantically, the idea that you've been here for this long, you've seen it through for 5, 10, 15 years, but you know you should probably get out. But you just can't bring yourself to do it. And each time you think you've got the strength, you've got everything set up, you've contacted your family members, you're like, you know what? I'm going to get out of the house. Maybe if it's a woman, she's going to take the kids with her, because that's what women do. They like to take the kids away from the dad. No, I've seen my son quite often. Don't go there. And maybe she's going to leave. Maybe he's going to leave. He's done with it. But yet something pulls her back in. Something pulls him back in, and he can't escape. Maybe you're trapped in a cycle of being... Maybe you're trapped, being cycled through the criminal justice system. And though you can't entirely say it's not your fault, because you are committing crimes and getting caught for it, you feel like you just can't stop because it's this life you're used to. And maybe there are these gang members around you that won't let you leave. Or maybe you just have this intense desire to keep committing the crime. You're a kleptomaniac and you can't stop from shoplifting. You're getting caught, you cycle through the jail, you go back to court, and each time you feel like you're done, you're not. Or perhaps it's substance abuse, alcoholism, or drug addiction. And each time you feel like, you know what, this time I'm getting away. 3 days pass, 4 days pass, 5 days, a week, a month, 2 months. I'm finally going to be done with this. And then that friend that you thought you could trust, who you thought got clean, you decide to hang out with him or her, and guess what? He or she pulls out the needle, pulls out the material in a little bag, and says, hey, you know what? Let's just do a little bit more. You know, we're fine. We'll just quit after this. And there you are, all the way back in it. Or maybe you hit this horribly depressing situation, and it causes you to just fall back into your old habits. And you find that you're just stuck in what seems like an impossible situation, a purgatory, somewhat of your own creation, but also from happenstance and circumstance. And there you are, unable to escape. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, each time you think you're about to crest the hill and escape the valley of death and despair, you fall back down into it. You're dragged back down into it. You're caught. And in the end, it always seems that no matter how close escape looks, it's always an illusion. There is no escape. You are stuck. You're really stuck. Just like in Returnal. You keep returning to the same bad situation that you want to escape from. But you just genuinely can't. You're never going to. You're stuck forever. At least until you die. But that's not true for me. My life is fine. I don't mind. I'm not stuck in anything. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. This has been the Foxx experience of Returnal, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye, everybody.